All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome and thank you for taking time to hear us out here. We're going to attempt to kind of talk about the ecosystem. We're going to drill down and talk about the different use cases around the different messaging types, and we really want to start with why. And so this slide is intending to kind of tee up the why. Messaging, since its inception, was generally a person texting another person. And over time, like Simon said, we built the shortcode program in the US to allow enterprises to leverage messaging as well. And so for the better part of 20 years, shortcodes have been around, and over that time, people have figured out how to text enable non-wireless numbers, so businesses could text enable their landline or voice over IP, or VoIP phone numbers can be text enabled. And so you saw this deployment of a lot of messaging from not necessarily the greatest sources. And so a lot of bad actors were coming around and creating messaging programs that were either spamming subscribers, giving unwanted texts, giving too many texts, lots of nefarious behavior that created the need from the wireless operators to put in significant amount of filtering or rules changes that prohibit that behavior. So it went from the wild, wild west, which was free for all, to kind of where we are today, which is a very, very regulated from the carrier's perspective position. And so we're going to talk a little bit about why that happened, and we're going to talk about the recent notice of proposed rulemaking from the Federal Communications Commission. In September, they launched or announced this potential rulemaking. And if you understand how the FCC works, they'll put out this NPRM, which is basically saying, hey, we're thinking about making some rules changes, and what do you guys think? And so they put out the NPRM, and then people have the ability to comment. So the comment period recently closed, and now people are viewing the comments, and then there's reply comments where people can do that. And then the FCC comes back together and decides, is there something here to move forward? And so they're looking at robotexting as cracking down. If you're following the telecommunications space much, you're probably familiar with the rules changes around voice and robocalling. There's been a lot of work done from the operators to kind of identify good calls. So you might even see this on your mobile device firsthand, where it'll say spam likely, or the caller ID of the person will show up if you have a third-party app or something like that. And that's happening because carriers are having to attest or sign up for those calls, saying this is a good call, or this is Simon calling or Brad calling, and you get to get that information kind of pushed along with the voice call. In the texting world, they're looking to do the same thing, but they just don't have the same technology. So the FCC's asked the industry, how would you do it? And everybody's kind of weighing in right now. In addition to the filtering systems that the carriers are using, there's a bunch of registration events happening. So on all messaging types now, there is a requirement to do some kind of registration, whether it's called a shortcode program brief, or a 10DLC registration, or a toll-free verification. There's some way that you have to identify who is sending the messages. It's a very common phrase in the world today. It's called know your customer, or KYC. And so they're interested in understanding the know your customer aspects of this ecosystem, which shows up somewhat problematic a lot of times, because you're looking at ways that your competitors are getting access to your customers' information. So there's definitely lots of challenge with the idea of giving your customers information or things like that. So more to come there, but wanted to tee up kind of why we're here in this world, and it really settles on people getting unwanted messages. So if we could do away with unwanted messages, great. The problem is unwanted is a subjective term. So so if we go to the next slide, I'll start detailing about what we're talking about on a more granular basis. So we get into the different message types, and then we're going to get into different use cases, and we're going to drill down in each of these message types. So you kind of look at it from a perspective. In the US, we primarily settle on 3 of the 4 types. And like I said, shortcode's been around for a long, long time. toll-free messaging was a thing that happened, I gotta say, close to 10 years ago. The carriers decided they would enable text messaging on toll-free numbers, and so there was an ability to create a new channel. The path or the gateway in which toll-free messages flow is the same as the short-code gateway. So if you think about the wireless carriers networks, there's really two messaging channels. That's short-code and toll-free, and long code. Local long code, same thing as 10DLC. So if you see that term local long code or 10DLC, that's the same thing. There used to be a distinction between A to P, application to peer or business to consumer, and consumer to consumer or P2P. There's less so the case these days. The carriers basically treat everything as A to P, and a very rare occasion they'll give an exemption for P2P traffic, but most everything is A to P. So we're going to talk about things being from a business. Long codes are your regular phone number. So things that are attractive when you're looking at the different use cases, you want to think about throughput, you want to think about your use case, you want to think about cost, and then you want to think about consumer perception. So a lot of people will say, I'd like a local long code because the person's going to think that it's coming from a locale that's close to them. Like if I have a Washington, D.C. 202 area code and I get a message from a 202 number, I'm going to assume that that's a local thing. We all know that's not the case, but this is some of the thinking that people have when they're choosing the different message type. Toll free, a lot of people don't even know what a toll free number is, but back in the day, long distance was a thing, right? So you had to pay extra to call a long distance, and businesses created these 800 numbers to allow for consumers to reach them for free, so they wouldn't have to pay the long distance. And so the toll free meant no charge. Toll free, it's not really a thing on the messaging side because everybody pretty much has unlimited plans. So you're talking about the idea that it's a business, and so there's a benefit to the number being kind of in people's mind associated with the business. But more and more as the generations get younger, they don't know what a toll free number is. So we have that. The key distinction that you want to think about from a toll free and a long code is that the toll free, because it's plumbed into the same gateway as a short code, the carriers turn on delivery receipts. And so that tells you that it got delivered to the handset. On a short code, they wanted to be able to tell the businesses that the message got delivered, so they turn on delivery receipts. So when toll free came around, it too sees delivery receipts, where on the long code side, you don't get handset delivery receipts. You only get a gateway delivery receipt. So you don't really know that the message got delivered.